friends. I am Sharon, and I'm here to talk to you today about English paper piecing. What is English paper piecing, you ask? In English paper piecing, this is a hand quilting technique where you cut out the pieces of your quilt from pieces of paper. You cut your fabric a little larger than the piece of paper that denotes your quilt piece. You fold your seam allowances around the piece of paper and baste or tack those seam allowances down. Once you have two or more of those, you put your pieces together, right sides together. You hand stitch them together with a little whip stitch. You open them out. You have a quilted piece. And then you go through and you pull that basting out and take those pieces of paper out and then finish your quilted piece however you like. Excuse me. I first found English paper piecing probably through Instagram. I follow a lot of quilters on Instagram, and I'm sure they mentioned it. I would do some searches, and what really attracted me to the English paper piecing was the preciseness of it. Because you are hand sewing pieces together, you can fussy cut your quilt pieces. Fussy cutting simply means looking at your fabric and being very precise about how you're cutting that fabric out so that the design on that fabric appears as you want it on the quilt. So you can very precisely cut and sew your quilt pieces and put them together in really precise and sometimes really super interesting ways. The other thing that really attracted me to it was that it is hand sewn, and because I'm starting to do a little bit of embroidery. I plan to hand quilt the quilt that I'm working on now, and I'm just being a lot more attracted to hand sewing lately. So I want a little hand sewn project that I can do in front of the television or when we're traveling, that I can just shove in my project bag and have it with me a lot so that I can work on it a lot of times. So I decided I'm going to try some English paper piecing. Where do I start? So as I went through Instagram and went through some blogs, I didn't really look for a pattern. I wasn't specifically looking for, oh, I want this and this and this in my English paper piecing pattern. I mostly just wandered around for days. I had time. I'm not in a hurry. It's hand quilting. I can't be in a hurry. So I took my time and I came across a pattern by Tales of the Cloth, who is a quilter in Australia. The name of the pattern she put together is called Pirouette. And what I really, really love about Pirouette is that it is circular, and it reminds me of something you would see in a kaleidoscope. So you've got a 5-pointed star in the middle, that's round 1, and then you add diamonds in between the star points, and then you add pentagons, I think, around the outside of that, and you keep adding rounds to the circular pattern. And what I really like about that too is that I can stop whenever I want. The full-size quilt is only like 40 inches wide. That's not very big at all. Totally doable with hand quilting. But I know me, maybe a little too well. And I may have a problem with project completion. I have a lot of unfinished knitting projects. I have a few unfinished sewing projects. So now it's time to start a new one, a new unfinished project. Maybe that's what I'll call this little quilt. A new unfinished project. I like that very much. So I've decided on my pattern, and I'll put a picture in it here for you. The pattern is free and it's online, and I'll put links below. But I'll put a photo here so you can pause if you want to look at it, because I think it's just really cool. The colors that she used are not my colors. I want something a little more coordinated. So happened to be at one of my local quilt shops a couple of weeks ago, and I started to look at fat quarters. One of the many things that I like about this pattern, I don't know if this stands for English paper piecing in general, I guess it's going to depend on how big your project is. I think she used mostly all fat quarters for her entire 42 inch project. And that makes me happy, because then I don't feel like I've committed to a cut of fabric, even if the cut of fabric is only 1/4 of a yard. For some reason, I feel more committed to those. Whereas I can pick up a fat quarter out of the fat quarter bin for $2 or $3 or whatever, coordinate it with other fat quarters, and then I have a nice little stack of fabric to use. So these are the first fabrics that I picked out for my Pirouette quilt. I'll put photos of these fabrics in here as well, just so you can get a little better idea of them. Now these gray and mustard colors, I love these colors. I think these colors are fabulous. I picked these out first, and I think they're all from the same line, so of course they coordinate really well. And then I picked up these two other ones, and those are fine. But I came home and I laid them out and I looked at them, and I just don't think these are the colors I want to use for this quilt. I want something brighter. I want something bold. I wanted jewel tones. So scratch these, forget these. I guess another good thing about fat quarters is that now these will be in my stash. And when I decide to do a gray and mustard quilt one day, these will be there waiting for me, and I can use them or not use them. So fast forward to last week, when my cousin and I went to another of our lovely local fabric shops. I am happy to live a little further north than I did just a couple of years ago. We have a lot more quilt shops up here than we do in Florida. So we need to be warmer longer, I guess. So I was really looking for more jewel tones and darker colors. And these are, I mean, look at the contrast. These are so much darker, so much bolder. And I really like these. I think these are awesome. I tried to get a couple of more neutrals to blend in, because I know, well, I don't know that's how you make quilts. I think I've heard that's how you make quilts. Okay, full disclosure. I've made 2 quilts in my life. I feel like I'm a quilter. I grew up quilting with my mom. My mom was an avid quilter. She would make a quilt, she'd sew together a quilt top in the summer, and then she would quilt it in the winter, and she produced at least a quilt a year for most of my life, I think. And I feel like I have that inheritance from her. I have that heritage from her, and I love that. But I've only finished 2 quilts, and one of them was almost a cheater quilt. One of them was a t-shirt quilt for a friend of mine that I didn't even quilt. I put the quilt pieces together. It was actually double-sided, so I did that twice. But I just laid it out on my dining room table, and I just knotted it. I did a knot technique with embroidery thread. I didn't even quilt that. And the other quilt that I made, I absolutely love. It went to another friend of mine who I feel absolutely loves it because they seem to use the hell out of it, and that warms my cockles very, very much. But those are the only two quilts I made. So when I talk about you're supposed to do this, I don't know. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this video series, because I don't know. I'm learning this shit, and I want you to join me on my travels. So let's learn this shit together, okay? So I thought I was doing the right thing by choosing some neutrals to throw in there that kind of coordinated with it. And these were fine. I like these. And then yesterday, I went to the most crazy, amazing quilt shop I've ever been to in my life. I'll throw a photo in here. It's in a large, very, very old, maybe it used to be a house, maybe it used to be a home, I'm not really sure, but it was a general store type of thing, and now it is literally filled to the rafters with bolts and bolts and bolts of fabric stacked up on top of each other, with aisles, with fabric looming over you. It is amazing, absolutely amazing, and overwhelming, absolutely overwhelming. One of the cool things about it was that they have everything categorized by category. So all of the barnyard animal fabrics are together, all of the Disney fabrics are together, all of the pretty little English flower patterns are together, all of the solids together, of course. And there was one little section that had some very beautiful blues and purples that I was really attracted to. So I picked these up. This piece of fabric, interestingly enough, I already have a skirt made out of this fabric that I made the skirt several years ago. It wasn't long after a trip that we took that I had a lot of skirt inspiration, and I found fabric just like this at my quilt shop and made a skirt out of it. And now that I think about it, I probably already have scraps of this, but I just went ahead and bought another yard. You never know what you're going to do with it. And then these two as well. I guess these don't all really matchy, but I love the colors in all of them. And so the second quilt shop we went to after that yesterday, I picked up these, and these kind of match as well. So yesterday I got home, I was super excited. I laid out all my new fabric. It's so pretty. And then I pulled in the fabric that I had gotten a couple weeks ago, and it's very pretty too. I don't know. It's just, there are parts of this that I really don't like. And I know it's no big deal to take, you know, this one fat quarter that I love, but doesn't necessarily go with everything else, and put that in my stash pile. I'm totally okay with that. But I'm getting frustrated at this point because I've been to 4 shops on 3 different trips, and I don't feel like I'm accumulating fabric for this quilt. So I kind of had to have a little come to Jesus with myself, and I needed to make some decisions. Do I go ahead and keep buying fabric, or do I figure this out? How am I going to do this? So here's the decision I came to. This is my favorite piece of fabric in all of these fabrics that I've gotten in the color scheme that I want to go with. This is my favorite piece of fabric. I'm going to start with this. Because the quilt I'm doing is built on previous work, I can totally do this. I can cut my 5 little star hunks out of this, lay it down, look at it, look at the other fabric that I have, lay it with it, take it to the quilt shop or to the fabric store, if I want, say I want to do a solid next, because I really love this, this little turquoise color in here. Maybe find a semi-solid that matches that. And I can just do it round by round and go from there. And that makes me super excited because that means I have a plan now. And one of the things you may know about me is that I really like to have a plan. I really need a plan. So that's my plan. Take this fabric, make quilt pieces. Plan set. So, plan set, next step. Make quilt pieces. To make the quilt pieces, I need the little paper templates, the English paper pieces, if you will, to make my quilt pieces out of this, even just my 5 little initial star quilt pieces. There's some decisions, there are some decisions I needed to make about the quilt pieces. Where are they going to come from? I can take paper that I have already. Usually a little bit of a thicker paper is easier to use, so like maybe like a scrapbooking paper, and I have a ton of leftover scrapbooking paper. Can take that, very precisely cut out the pieces to be used. I could cut them out all at once, or I can do it like I'm doing this quilt. I could do them one round at a time. But you need one piece of paper for every quilt piece. I thought about doing that, but because English paper piecing is so precise, I would want those pieces to be perfect. So I would want to get like acrylic templates already to do that. And if I were gonna make a half a dozen of these, I might get the acrylic templates because I think there are acrylic templates. I'm not 100% sure. I'd have to look on our website. But what I ended up doing, because it was easy, and I may have had a beer or two already and it was quite clickable, I just clicked the button and I bought a whole set of the actual English paper pieces from Tales of Cloth and had them delivered to my house. So I don't have to cut any paper pieces. I think that was a good decision on my part. That might not be the decision that you make. That's okay. We all do it differently. Her pieces are laser cut, so I know they're very precise. I don't know how thick the paper is. I haven't opened them yet. But I'm very excited about doing that. And I'm saving that for the next video. Because another thing I'm not sure about is how big the pieces are. I don't know what kind of pieces I'm going to be working with yet. It does say on the website the size of the pieces. I think most of the diamonds are 1.5 inches, 1 3/4 inches, maybe. And logically, I know how long that is, but I don't really know how that's going to be to work with because I haven't done this before, which is why we're here. So stay tuned next time. I'm going to open up my paper pieces on camera and maybe make a few more decisions about where to start. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate your time, and I hope to see you in the next video. Cheers.